You're listening to The Lead Like No Other Podcast, episode 82. We are living through unprecedented times right now, and this episode really is about behaviors. Both behaviors that will help us to deal with this crisis, as well as the behaviors that will undermine our ability to come through this crisis stronger than we are right now. And it's our choice in terms of which way we're going to go. The goal of this episode is twofold. Is one, to identify irrational behaviors and unconscious biases that we all fall victim to so that people can hopefully stop some of the panic that's going on, but also to talk about what behaviors do we need to work together to make sure that we come out of this thing stronger than we went into it. Again, I'm Patrick V, and this is The Lead Like No Other Podcast, where I'm not only obsessed with interviewing those whose actions are inspiring others to do great things, but also in uncovering the research that demonstrates that we all have the ability to rise above our best. And it starts with ourselves. And never in our history do we need people to behave in ways that inspire others more than we do right now. So let's get into it. As I mentioned, I wanted to talk about really some irrational behaviors, unconscious biases, however you want to label them. The first one is around what's called availability heuristic. And really what happens in this case is people overestimate the importance of information that is available to them. So as an example, a person might argue that smoking is not unhealthy because they know of several people that haven't contracted cancer or lung cancer because of smoking. So therefore, that's all the data that they have. Smoking doesn't cause cancer. In the same situation that we're in right now, I think there are those that maybe, depending on their age, think somehow they're immune to this, or that it will impact them less because they're younger. And while that might be true, what it doesn't take into account is what this will do in regards to overwhelming our healthcare system so that those that are older and don't handle this as well, the resources they need will not be there. We've heard over and over again why it's important to flatten out the curve. And that's what this really speaks to, is just because you think this is just a stronger version of the flu that you recover from, others will not. The next bias that I'm going to talk about is confirmation bias. And confirmation bias is one that says we only tend to go with the information that confirms our perceptions. And confirmation bias is one where we only look to the evidence that confirms whatever our perceptions are. One of the many of the reasons it's hard to have an intelligent conversation about climate change with some people is they will often look to the weather in terms of always being variant, right? It's really cold one day, so tell me about global warming now, where they will try and lump weather and climate as the same, and they're not. Where do we see that in this place? Is confirmation bias is such that there are probably those out there that will say, oh, it's not going to impact us, or this is what we've done, that this is why it won't be the same. Where we're discounting the evidence that says that this thing is like a runaway train at times if we don't really take it seriously. And to play off of that, another bias that we can run into, another cognitive bias we can run into, is called the Ostrich Effect. The Ostrich Effect really is just as it sounds, the decision to ignore dangerous or negative information by burying one's head in the sand, like an ostrich. And to me, I think we see this right now, is that there are many that are doing the ostrich effect of thinking, oh, it won't be as bad as it was in Europe or in China because we're in the US and we're different. And if you look at the data that's being presented now, it says that we're in the exact same situation as Italy was. And quite honestly, I would rather look back on this and say we overreacted than be in a situation that says, I wish we had taken this more seriously. Because certainly that's what you hear many in Italy saying. The last one is around scarcity. And scarcity, I think, is so important here in that we're seeing it over and over again. And I believe the mainstream media is part of the problem here, that they have created some of this, where they've created a sense of panic where people are rushing to supermarkets and to other outlets to really overwhelm them in regards to buying up things in bulk that prevents everybody else from getting the piece just that they need as well. There's an enormous amount of research around scarcity effect, and we know that we're more motivated to avoid a loss than a gain. And this is playing itself over and over again. In grocery stores, it is never more evident than right now, but this plays itself out over and over again. There have been studies that they've done where they've looked at sales in grocery stores of an item like soup. And when they limited the number of cans a person could buy, people bought more soup than if they could buy as many cans as they wanted at the same price. And we see that happening now. Whether it's toilet paper or hand sanitizer or any other thing that's going to be the next thing that people are going to watch everybody maybe buying one. So you start to think, well, I need one myself. And if I'm going to buy one, they're going to be gone if I don't get two of these things. And we fall victim and prey to this, that we feel like if we don't get this, they're all going to be gone. And it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, and it just builds and builds on itself. And unfortunately, there are those out there that are unscrupulous when it comes to this. And they go around and they buy as many as they can so that they can take advantage of people later on. But one way that we can help to prevent this is if we all recognize what's going on, that there is enough for everybody. If we just slow down and recognize the irrationality that's happening to us right now, we wouldn't have the run that we've got now in regards to the items that are unavailable. Because what happens if it's really somebody that is in need of that, an elderly individual, that because a knucklehead that felt the need to store a case of hand sanitizer in their basement, now somebody that really needs this doesn't have it available to them. So that's the unconscious bias component of this. The other component to this in regards to the positive behaviors that we really need to demonstrate is one, just to pause. And this is not to stick our head in the sand, but it's simply to take a step back and be able to say, what do we need to do to change the trajectory of this? Because we really need to understand that we will either be part of the problem or part of the solution. One of the best ways that we can do that is if we think in terms of behaviors of being for others. We're practicing social distancing to save our physical health. We are going to need to practice social assisting if we are going to come out of this with a community health and strength that is strong as well. And in the long run, that is going to be far more damaging to our communities if we cannot find a way to work together to deal with this. And that means all of us taking responsibility, that if it is a restriction, that we all follow what the restriction is and not one person think that they're above it and they're just going to go against it because, oh, this isn't me. I'm not the one that's going to contract this, and I'm not the one that's going to spread this on. Well, I'm sure each person that has contracted this thought that they were not the one that was going to catch it either. But somehow they did. We all need to work together on this, and both from the standpoint of understanding what irrational behaviors and unconscious biases that we will be dealing with to be able to control those, but also is just out there doing the right thing and helping out those that are in your community that need your help. If everybody does this, if we just work together to support each other and hold each other accountable through this and do what needs to be done, we will be far better off in the long run. And if we don't, then we will pay the consequence long term. I hope this episode has provided you with some information that will help you to deal going forward or support somebody else going forward. If you know somebody you feel would benefit from listening to this episode, I'd ask that you please forward it on to them. This is such a critical time. It would mean the world to me, and not about vanity likes or any of that other BS that's going around. I would love to know if this episode resonates with you, because this is what it means to lead like no other and to rise above your best. So until our next episode, I hope you're able to do both. Peace.